part 2 of how I paid for my fixer-upper and the renovations. So to quickly summarize part 1, I bought my first house with a few years of savings and 5% down and a higher interest rate to cover part of the closing costs and a seller credit of $5,000 for an error on their part that also helped cover the closing costs. I spent about $35,000 over 3.5 years fixing that house up, 15 of which was a personal loan. This would not work if you were trying to flip a house, but I was just trying to have a nice place to live and slowly work on things over time. So that brings me to my current house, which is also hopefully my forever house. It was the middle of COVID and I had just gotten engaged to my now husband, and we saw this house come on the market. We really weren't ready to buy a new house. I had planned to stay at my old house for longer, but we both just absolutely fell in love with this house and decided we had to make it work. I'm going to be just a little vague for privacy, but we paid in the mid 400,000s for this house, which is honestly more than I ever thought I would spend on a house in my life. We put 20% down on this house, most of which came from the profits of selling my previous house, which had appreciated in value over 3.5 years quite a bit with all the work I had done to it. We also got a $10,000 credit towards closing costs from the seller because the house was in such terrible shape, basically. So right after we closed on the house, we opened a home equity line of credit, which basically let us borrow 10% of the value of our home and had a not as low as a mortgage, but much lower than personal loan interest rate. We also took out a couple of new credit cards that have 0% interest rate for a couple of years and paid for our plumbing separately with a loan through the plumbing company, plus some generous cash gifts from our families for our wedding, which we did for really cheap in our backyard. So the simple and not very fun answer is that after all that, we're basically just in a ton of debt. I have a plan to pay everything off within the next few years, and basically we just decided it was worth it for our dream home. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and this is not a good strategy for flipping houses. I just want to reiterate that. We are not flipping. We are going to live here until we die. Hopefully in a long time from now. There is a loan program I'm familiar with called FHA 203K, and they will lend you the money for your home plus renovations. The caveat is that there's a lot of rules and restrictions, both when you're finding a home to buy and while you're doing the renovation process. I don't think my house would have passed their inspection, and I didn't want to deal with it, honestly. But that is an option as well. Leave any other questions in the comments.